21 straight strikes.
Down swing, and that's 8 Ks for Masterson. He's Iron Mike right now throwing strikes. He has struck out 8. He is now retired 7.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Justin Masterson Show. I'm your host, Justin Masterson, and yeah, well, it's it's just me today, as my guy, Mr. Matthew Zappasodi, is not hanging out with me today. He's off doing some great things, traveling a little bit. I was going to try and get him on the show, and from afar, but our schedules haven't lined up, and timing is of the essence, trying to get out a show each time. So who knows? Maybe it would be more important to just wait for Mr. Zappasodi, or maybe not. Yeah, we'll find out as we continue on this, but appreciate that you're here. Should be a good time. I don't know. This one is a little bit maybe shorter than what we would typically have, even though I always say that, and then by the end of it, never end up getting to the shortness that I want it to be. And so we're continuing on in the series that we got, what husbands wish their wives knew about men, and we've been rocking through this article, and this next one takes us to something different. I was thinking about it. Man, I don't have a crazy it's all part of it. It's all part of it. Just a message show. Oh, thank you, Zappo. And I did have a little, our high school baseball team had a little first pitch dinner going on, and I was the DJ. And you're like, oh, DJ. Yeah, I don't really DJ a whole lot, have the equipment, but don't really go about it and do it often. Actually, it's been once a year. I DJ'd this event last year, and then I DJ'd it this year. And I do some music playing and stuff here and around. I got this little Hercules mixing board. It's like $80-$90 that makes it fun in order to do the ones and twos, as they would say. And it's just an interesting gambit when you're doing the DJ, because I know what I like, and I love dancing, getting out on the dance floor, moving and grooving, having a good old time. My wife and I love dancing. She did not come to the event, unfortunately, but almost was able to convince her because there was dancing that was happening, and she loves dancing also, and we really enjoy dancing together, and we don't get to do that too often. Sometimes, in the morning, but then she's like, the kids are watching. I'm like, it's okay. They need to see, a couple people dancing together, a nice married couple. It's wonderful. And so with this, we are doing the DJ stuff, and DJing is not, it's not easy. I mean, it is, but it's not. I mean, you're just playing music. But if you're trying to really get it to where you're getting people on the dance floor and get them moving and grooving and just having a great time out there, it can take a little work, especially when you don't do it that often. So I don't know all it is. I know what I like. And so I'm putting some of that out there. And overall, it went really good. It was great. There's actually more people dancing out there on the floor than I think maybe last year. And what I like is I want people to come tell me what they enjoy. And it's interesting whenever they come, because someone would be like, hey, could you play this? Us old people need a little something. I'm like, I didn't need the justification of it. Just tell me what song you want, and I'll see if I can mix it in. Now, every once in a while, there's a couple people who try and mix in some songs, and I'm like, one, I don't know if we can really dance to this, and two, like, this ain't fitting the vibe that we got going right now at this moment. Like, there's, we're kind of in this hip hop, we're bumping, we're grinding, and then you're trying to take me in a whole different spot, maybe a little Britney Spears, Bye Bye Bye. I'm like, I don't know if I'm ready for that one yet, but also when you don't do it that much, I don't mind trying to mix that puppy in there, even though it may hit off key. Because in the end, if the person is like, whew, yeah, that maybe wasn't so great, I'll be like, well, cool. Next time you can actually pay for a DJ. But that is what is the it's all part of it? Just DJing and putting whatever songs and not worrying about what people think, but still trying to help them have a good time. That's the all part of it. It's all part of it. Because it kind of gets into what I'm looking to talk about a little bit today. So as we go into the next part of it, we get a husband needs his wife to give him grace and still love him even when he makes mistakes or fails. In other words, a husband needs his wife to respond to him in a way that demonstrates the mercy and grace of God. I get it. Of course, the first bit in all of this, men are telling their wives, husbands, I should say, are telling their wives what they should know about men, and it always seems like, hey, men are making tons of mistakes. This guy must make a ton of mistakes, and people do in this life make a ton of mistakes. But ultimately, he's put on the fact of like, hey, you need to show me some mercy and grace, even when I make mistakes. And it's true, because mistakes are going to happen. But I'm still going to die on the hill of the fact that you need to be faithful. And I still go, I was in India, and this guy named Victor John, who's part of this movement of people where, 30 plus million people have come to know Jesus over the last 29 years. I'm working on a documentary for it, but don't tell anybody yet. It's not. I've been telling people about it, and it still ain't ready. We're still working, and it's almost about 2 years in, but it's a process. When you don't know how to do something, it's a process to try and get it done. But this guy, Victor John, he made one of these statements that came, and he said it's not your faith in God, but God's faith in you. And I'm like, what in the world? What does it matter, God's faith in me? And then I thought about some leadership principles that I talked about that others have they've told me first. I didn't come up with it because I don't come up with any of this stuff. But it was the two things about being an effective leader is, one, it's all about you. And two, it's not about you, which would seem to be the total opposite of what it is. But when I started breaking those down, then as I heard what Victor had said, it kind of started making sense, because when it's not about you, so the second part of it, it's not about you, well, that's because you're a servant. Like, you want to be serving those who are around you. That's the best type of leader. You're doing whatever needs to be done to pick up the slack. You're making sure that those who are under you, under your leadership, have the best environment to be able to do the best that they can, which is great, which is hard. That's probably the most difficult, but people remember those type of leaders more than anybody else. Well, let's not say that. People will remember the leader who yells and screams and belittles them and tears them apart. And so I'll go down that tangent. See, Zappo's not here, so he can't keep me on task for what I'm trying to do. I'm going to go down that tangent 1 second. Because in this coaching world and life, and we've talked about it before, you get people who what? They think that you have to be intense. You gotta use curse words to get people to listen to what you're gonna say. You gotta tear them down in order to build them back up. And you gotta do this by being intense, overbearing, yelling. There's screaming that's involved in there. And I'm like, it doesn't have to be that way. Now, I think there are times when the voices will need to be raised a little bit for people to understand that this is a different scenario, that you're utilizing your larger voice, because I need people to listen to me right now. But it doesn't have to be the same of screaming, yelling, belittling, like, oh, I can't believe you did that. You're so terrible. And so this came up is, I like to watch the Fisher Tigers basketball, and afterwards take my son, a couple of his buddies. We go get a little bite to eat afterwards these last couple weeks. And we're talking, and one of his buddies is talking about his coach. his basketball coach. He's like, oh, yeah, he's really, really, really hard on us, but it's really great because he puts in good drills and really understands the game. And I'm like, I don't know if that's great. He's like, no, like, we need people to give us, be tough on us. The parents see it and the parents are all for it. I'm like, yeah, that still doesn't resonate with me. And he's like, well, and eventually we were talking for a little bit, going over this of how I don't really enjoy that style or the way, that aspect of the way it's being done. And he goes, well, I guess we all kind of have lost our confidence over the year. I'm like, well, what do you mean? Well, are you afraid to make a mistake? Yeah, that's exactly what it is. I'm afraid to make a mistake. And so then you go out there without any confidence, fearful of what may happen if you do. And you can't perform the way, you don't experience any type of freedom within what you're trying to do. And all you're worried about is like, oh, what is coach going to say? Am I going to make a mistake? Am I going to, I shouldn't have made that pass. And then now you're dwelling on the mistakes that you made instead of trying to push forward to what you need to do in the next breath, even if you just made a mistake. And and again, there's people who are like, well, I love that hard coaching. It's great for me. And I said, yeah, well, there are ones who have a tough skin who can handle that, who in the end sometimes don't care about anybody else and only themselves, so they don't care what anyone else says. They're like, well, I'm going to do me anyways, so you say whatever you want, you yell, scream at me, I'm still going to be me. And I don't think that is the most effective way to go about it, because that type of individual will always need somebody up in their face at some point in time to motivate them. Because in the end, how can we learn those who may be a little bit softer to motivate themselves, and those who are a little more intense can still be able to motivate themselves, not always need yelling and screaming, can work under somebody who has a soft voice, and can work under somebody who has a strong voice. And so when I say that, we got this idea of number 2, to be a servant, to lead well, to come up behind people, to also go from the front, because people don't want to be the first one because they get out. It's just like you've ever played knockout in basketball. Nobody wants to go first. They always want to go second, because the first person, you miss it, that second guy behind you might nail that shot, and then you're out, and you got to wait for the next game to come in. Not cool, not fun, not great. But it takes a special someone to be able to step up in the front and do it, knowing that they might take ridicule. It may not be the perfect thing. But let's go back to the first thing I said, where it was talking about number 1 is leadership is all about you. It made me think about when Victor said, it's not your faith in Jesus and God, but his faith in you. And so when I put that with that leadership principle of it's all about you, it shows you have to be one who has proven to be worthy. And I don't think that that's always the case in the way that we do this. And when I'm reading this article and it's like this guy's talking about all these different things, and I go, the thing that just cries out to me through it all is like, are you worthy? Have you proven worthy to be able to handle this, to be able to be put in this situation, to be able to speak in this type of way that somebody's going to actually listen to what you have to say? And that's not perfection by any means. I think that's what leads us right here. If you have proven worthy, that you go about your business, you do the things that you need to be done, that when you ask for just give me some grace and still love me, even when I make a mistake and fail. Because we don't need that hard coach who just comes in and continues to just say, oh yeah, well, yeah, you made this mistake and you made that mistake and you did this and you did that. Yeah, I did. And keep telling me. And I don't think that's really going to make me any better. And not that there's never a moment to point out where those mistakes are, because that's a part of this process. But it's like, hey, how can we have enough relational capacity to still know that, like, hey, dude, you messed up, but I'm still here with you. I still got you. I mean, in these overarching things, it's this insecurity of men that just keeps popping out. And I know women have tons of insecurities just the same, but this insecurity of men that just keeps popping in of just tell me you'll be with me at all times. And we don't have a problem when we're with the homies. Like when we're hanging out with our guys, we have mistake happens, something happens, we get made fun of for a little bit, and then we keep on going because for some reason we have no doubt that they will be with us through the thick and thin. And yet we don't always believe that with the person that we've chosen to marry and live our life with for the rest of all time. And some of that society has done that because divorce is an easy thing to pop into, and it doesn't matter whether you have any religious background or not. The amount of divorces that take place are roughly the same, and people don't want to work through it. And people are afraid to speak what they want to say because you got someone like me who will make fun of what you're trying to say here, isn't the guy saying these things. But it's okay. In other words, he says a husband needs a wife to respond to him in a way that demonstrates the mercy and grace of God. And so let's do this. Grace. What even is grace? Grace is the approval or kindness that is freely given, not earned. Now, approval makes me think that it makes me think of the idea that in many cases, some of it's immaturity, and it still technically is immaturity, but not the immaturity we talk about, not the ability to not handle your emotions. It's just you're being funny, goofy, playful, and that happens on both spectrums. But how can, in the midst of that, you not be embarrassed? You know, to allow someone to be who they are and not feel like you have to control them. And that's a difficult thing because we want to change everyone who we see around us. We want to adjust and we want to make them something different. And it's like, whoa. All right, it doesn't mean that things maybe don't need to change at some point in time, but let's come around and see who they are. See what they got. And especially when you know that they've grown in their maturity and the ability to handle their emotions. And so now what do you get? The freedom to be playful. And unfortunately, many of us are still concerned about what others will think, how others will perceive you. And I'm not saying we're going to go hate on somebody or anything like that, but I'm going on the fact of like others will, we don't care what others are going to say when we're being goofy or playful in the midst of it and we're still being respectful. And that's the aspect of this that I think we really need when we're showing this grace. Is like just when I go, mess up, who knows? I leave the car lights on and the battery dies. I forget to do this and something else doesn't work out. I'm not gonna say forgot to pick up my kid. I don't know. He was a little late with something else that I was trying to do. Just give me a little grace in there. Don't be embarrassed by me. And for the end of it on the guy who does it or the girl who does it, like try not to be embarrassed of it. Like when your significant other or those around you give you a hard time, but in that playful type of way, and you know that there's a lot of grace in there, there's a way to get out of it. So there's not this unhealthy shame that comes in. We talk about that often. We don't want unhealthy shame. It means there's no way out. It means I'm just going to continue to bring it up over and over and over again until you are just broken down and unhealthy. But the healthy shame says, hey, you're just not acting like ourselves. A little bit of mistake. It's okay. There's a way to come out of it. We still love you. Still care. We got plenty of grace for you. And so that's great. I mean, it's grace is wonderful to bestow, but it's also hard in order to do it. But it made me think as I was looking at these words, mercy and grace, and then you have this idea of mercy, which is showing kindness and compassion. I was listening to another podcast, and they were talking about a group of people, and a group of people from the Bible who, man, they live life exactly the way you're supposed to. They spoke the words exactly the way you're supposed to. They were like doing it to a key or to a T, exactly the way things need to be done. But the problem is they had zero compassion. And so I had to look it up. I'm like, well, let me get some definition of these words that we're using, because I think I understand what's trying to say. But if you have kindness is a way of being considerate, generous, and helpful. which we've kind of said on here before. Kindness is helping others to feel joy, to find the joy for others. And then compassion is feeling of caring for others' suffering and wanting to help, a way of showing love and concern for others. I think when we get into marriages, we get into friendships, we get into, any type of relational capacity. I'm talking, you meet somebody, you've built a relationship. And if we're trying to keep relationships bigger than problems, compassion is something that gets lost. We want someone to be different. We want them to change, to think our way, and then I'll feel for them. Rather than looking at someone who's hurting and pain, maybe they made a mistake, and instead of always trying to pile on, maybe we could have some compassion. Like thinking of that group that was talked about in the Bible where they're living the life the right way. And they're out in their community, they're helping out people. But for the ones who believe differently, no compassion. No understanding of what they're going through and what's happening within their life. No ability to take a second and just go, yeah, it's probably not easy. It's probably difficult for you. Now, it doesn't mean whatever took place, it's okay, and we went there. And I'm not talking, if you're, the thing that came to mind when I was thinking through this, it's like, man, if there's abuse going on, you're getting mentally, physically abused or anything, no. Like, there is no excuse for those type of things to take place. Like it is, I think there are times where maybe we can accidentally verbally abuse or mentally abuse when we weren't trying to, we weren't even thinking about it, but that came along and we can have that conversation. Again, the more we can talk, the more mature that we are. We can be like, that wasn't my intention. And I'm not trying to justify what I was saying. I'm just going, that wasn't my intention, but I understood that that's how you heard it. And so I'm going to try and adjust the way that I say it. He who is more mature, can he change the ways or understand better for those who are less mature? So I can adjust some of the things that I do for the people who are around me, who may not be as mature, as I am. But man, if it's something intense like that, no. We're not trying to mess with that, fix that on our own. We go get help if there's some type of real abuse that's going on. No, this is the everyday disagreements that take place, the embarrassment that happens. It's a forgotten event. It's a disrespect that took place, and an immaturity in the inability to handle our emotions. We let those big emotions just rule us. We get hangry when we don't eat. We get upset when we don't get enough sleep, and we still act like children in that type of way. Which is so much different than any other type of way. And we have, this is a story that may or may not flow, is we have, I think, an enemy out there. I know. Like, we got an enemy out there who's trying to rile things up. I mean, the marriage, the relationships that we have, the community that we can create, which we don't do great always here in the United States because we have so much things going on. Like, that sets things differently. It sets things apart. When you can be in a relationship with people who upset you at times and you still deal with them and you still are able to talk to them, one, it challenges you in how you do things. It helps you grow in your maturity, but it's not easy. It's hard. And growth is hard. Every single moment where you're trying to grow, it hurts. When you're lifting weights and you're getting those micro tears in your muscles, which is what leads to the growth, to the strength that's going to be in there. As those things heal and they mend, those fibers in your muscles, that's where true growth comes. And so you have to have a little bit of pain and a little bit of suffering that comes along the way in order to experience any type of growth. But it's not fun. It's not easy. My wife and I will talk often about some of these things. It's like, yeah, I get that, but it's not fun. And I joke about that. Everything's got to be fun. I mean, in this world, no. I want things to be fun and enjoyable, but I surely know that they aren't. In the end, I want them to be joyful. And joyful means I know that somebody is happy to be with me. And this is what is asked for. And each of these things that has been said, if we get another overall gambit of it, is just we want to experience joy. So that I want to know that somebody is happy to be with me no matter what. No matter what I do, no matter where I go, there's somebody happy to be with me. And I know 100% sure that God is that. I mean, in the Old Testament, I may have talked about before, in the Old Testament, they used to, now it says the joy of the Lord was their strength. It said, used to say, this God's face shone upon them. They could see that smiling face looking down at them, and that brought them joy. They knew somebody was happy to be with them. That's why a smile is such a disarming thing. Well, most of the time. Sometimes people are like, what are you looking at me like that for? Like what, man? Can't I just be happy to see you? And so there's this story of you have this enemy who's trying to destroy. And I think we need to work through and try and be overly positive. I do this speech sometimes where I talk about trying to activate our inner psycho. And there's 3 points to it, but the first one is being overly positive. You know, you ever seen the movies where the psycho's out there and dude gets hit, pop, and it just doesn't deter him from what he's trying to do? Man, it makes me think of the old, Monty Python type of skit. If you don't know it, look it up, and you'll be like, oh, okay. But the whole point is, dude goes like, hey, I cut off your arm. No, you didn't. It's like, oh, I cut off your other arm. And he's just like, it's merely a flesh wound. And he keeps pushing forward, and he doesn't stop because he knows whatever's in front of him is valuable. Now, again, the psycho is usually trying to instill some sort of harm upon somebody, which is not great. But if we can think of it in a positive, like we want to be positive psychos, where we see the good and we want that to happen, and we're not going to let anything stop us in that pursuit. As we seek joy for ourselves and we give kindness, which is seeking joy for others, which is just someone who's happy to be, not happy to be with me. They're not always happy, but happy to be with me, happy to see me. And so I was, back in the day, I was with Boston, and we were in Washington, D.C. I think we were playing the Nationals, and it was cool. I got to go to the Pentagon for a little bit, but that's a story for another day. But I got to go to the Secret Service training facility, which was just outside of town. And we go, and it was really neat. You get to see all the things that they're doing and learn a little bit about it. And then we go to the gun vault, where they have this expert, where it's not the biggest collection of guns, but they have some really neat and cool stuff. But the guy talking, he had a little bit of time before he had to go talk to senators and stuff like that, the really fancy, important people. But he's telling us a story, and he was giving this difference of hollow points and lead points for bullets. Excuse me. And the lead point is full metal jacket, like it's firm, it's hard. It's like the not really the tip of this pen, but it's full bore. It comes in, and what it does is it goes in a little hole in the front, a little hole in the back, and just kind of cuts through whatever it's being shot at. But then you have a hollow point, which there's an opening to it, and it's got some jaggedy edges, but you have this middle that is open. And so they'll do these tests, you can see, where you hang up a milk jug that's full of water, and you shoot it with a full metal jacket. They call it lead point, and it just kind of pops through, puts a little hole in the front and the back. And then they get this hollow point, and you shoot the same, not the same one because that one already has a hole in it, but shoot the other one that's next to it, and on impact, it just explodes. And so if you'll track with me with this, I think the enemy tries to use some hollow points against us, because this is what, in a positive way, the gun guy would talk about. He said, you know what? I like having hollow points because if a bad guy is coming at me, I want to change his mind. I want to adjust his way of thinking to coming after me to thinking of himself and self-preservation. So when it comes in and a guy comes and I shoot him, hollow point puts a little hole in the front and a big hole in the back. But it has stopping power, is the way that he would say it. Because when a guy would come at him and you shoot that individual and it comes, and I'm not saying, hey, we need to all go shoot and do this type of stuff. But for the example, stay with me. Don't lose it in the other things that are trying to distract you. Is bullet comes in, boom. He's trying to get you. He's coming after you. You hit him, big thing, and all of a sudden he's going, oh my, this hurts. Oh my goodness. And he's no longer thinking about you. He's been distracted, which one allows you then to escape or allow help to come in and take over. You're like, Justin, how does this, like, he was fighting the enemy. So that's what I want to do to the enemy, right? Distract them. Well, just think of what happens in our lives as someone coming and trying to distract us. I mean, how often are, yes, these issues that come in are real. These disagreements are not good. When someone disrespects us, that's not good. But there also can be used as some distractions because they try and take us away from what we know the value of relationships are. And so I think this devil he's trying to come in and he's trying to shoot us with these hollow points. And it's hitting us here and it's taking us from moving towards what is good to only thinking about ourselves. Because that's what causes the biggest issue is when we only think about ourselves. And so if we take the idea of activating that inner positive psycho and say we will be overly positive, we get hit and go, whoo, I felt that one, but it ain't going to stop me. This ain't about me. I'm still moving forward. Boom, I get another one. No, that's not going to stop me. None of this is going to stop me from moving to where I need to be because I know once I get there, I got somebody who will patch me up. Doesn't matter how many holes I get along that journey on the pathway that I'm trying to go, there is someone there who's going to be there to patch me up. Whether that starts with the friend that's there, the relational capacity that comes in when we're giving mercy and grace to each other and we're feeling this compassion, and all of a sudden the joy sets in because I know that somebody's happy to be with me. And that cures all things. It takes it away and makes it go, ooh, okay, here we go. So I hope you didn't get lost in the gruesome detail of what it is, but the fact that that is happening, there is forces that are trying to keep us from having these great relationships because it is a beautiful depiction of the way the kingdom of God comes in, the way life should be when we have wonderful flowing relationships where we can disagree and still come together, when we can be disrespected and be able to voice that and still move forward for what we're trying to do. So don't give up. Don't, give every effort in the midst of what we're trying to do and keep pushing forward. It is true. A husband needs his wife to give him grace and still love him even when he makes mistakes. And the husband needs to love his wife and give her grace and love him even when they make mistakes. And a friend needs to do that. And you need to do that with your children. I know I stepped on some toes right there, but you need to do that with your children too. Do that while you're coaching. When you're a boss, when you're leading people. Maybe you're not the boss, but you're still leading somebody. We all have that some sort of leadership. Take ownership of that and be overly positive in the journey as you're trying to get it. And people will see you as weird. And it doesn't mean you don't understand the situation. You don't see the difficulty of what it might be. Doesn't mean you don't understand the hardships that people are going through in the midst of it. But if you can keep positive in order to push forward, there's going to be some incredible things going on. Whew. Okay. I mean, Zap's not here to give a nice flowing bit. Usually has some great dissertations in the midst of it, and some great ways to take this home and go. But I'll just say this. In the midst of whatever comes, try and stay positive. Know that difficulty is coming your way. I mean, even this morning, as my wife and I we're talking, and my daughter's, stresses of life come in, and when we're dealing with people, sometimes it feels like it's you never win. She's like, I feel like I've gained some ground, and then I just feel like I lost it. I said, babe, I think that's the way sometimes it is with all of us. We gain some ground and then we lose it, but it's the journey of it. Like we're getting in there. Like, don't stop. Keep fighting. Keep pushing forward. Keep trying to gain ground in your own life and in the lives of others. And who knows what God will do when it all comes down to it. I miss you, Zap. Appreciate everyone listening, paying attention as we go. look forward to seeing you again next week.